Maharaj ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for joining today, and we'd like to seek the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Shyam Sundar, Krishna Balaram, Gaunitai, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, so that we can continue with the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 89th chapter overview, and also wanted to seek the good wishes and the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas, so that we can enter into this nectar of the incredible scripture. So this is one of the verses, verse number 57 in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 89th verse.
Bhavandam atmanam anantam jyotyo jishnos chatarshana jata sada satvashaha tvahai bhuma param mestinam purabhur Vedanjali sasmitam urjaya gira. Translation: Lord Krishna offered homage to himself in this boundless form, and Arjun, astonished at the sight of Lord Mahavishnu, bowed down as well. Then, as the two of them stood before him with joined palms, the Almighty Mahavishnu, Supreme Master of all rulers of the universe, smiled and spoke to them in a voice full of solemn authority.
Very interesting, where one Vishnu Tattva meets another Vishnu Tattva. Very interesting indeed. So we'll see the context of this in a minute. So the chapter is entitled Krishna and Arjun Retrieve a Brahman's Sons. This chapter describes how Bhrigu Muni proved the supremacy of Lord Vishnu and how Lord Krishna and Arjun recovered the dead sons of an aggrieved Brahman in Dwarka. So which of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu or Shiva, is supreme? This is a very interesting question. Once long ago, on the shore of the river Saraswati, a discussion amongst a group of sages who were performing a Vedic sacrifice as to which of the three chief lords, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, is the greatest, the supreme. So even the sages were not very clear about who was the greatest, or apparently not very clear. They deputed Bhrigu Muni, Lord Brahma's son, to investigate the matter. Bhrigu Muni decided to test the Lord's tolerance. So there's many ways to test somebody, and one of them is if I insult somebody, how will they react? So testing their tolerance. For that quality is a sure sign of greatness. So firstly, he went to Lord Brahma. He entered the court of Lord Brahma to test how well Lord Brahma was situated in the mode of goodness. Bhrigu failed to bow down to him because he was his son. So the etiquette is when the son meets the father, he bows down because he's a superior person. Or he did not glorify him with prayers. So both these things important, especially an exalted father like Brahma. Brahma became very angry at him, inflamed into fury by his own passion. Through anger, anger towards his son was now rising within his heart, Lord Brahma was able to subdue it by applying his intelligence, in the same way that fire is extinguished by its own product, water. That's interesting, isn't it? How can that be the case, that fire has its own? Well, the sun consists of fire. When it evaporates, water turns into clouds and then turns back into rain, into water. So that's why it's regarded as the father, really, of water. So Bhrigu then went to, when he saw Lord Brahma becoming angry but controlled himself, and he left and he went to Mount Kailash. There Lord Shiva stood up and happily came forward to embrace his younger brother. So Shiva and Bhrigu are sons of Brahma. Of course, Lord Shiva's position is higher than that of Brahma, but when Lord Brahma became angry, when his sons, the four Kumaras, took sannyas when they were age of 5, he became angry. So that time, his anger, from his anger came the Rudra, incarnation of Lord Shiva. So he's born of Lord Brahma in one sense, and hence he's a brother of Bhrigu. Bhrigu refused his embrace, telling him, "You're a deviant heretic." What's this? You're making a show of your meditation, wearing skulls around your neck and having dust all over your body, ashes all over your body. It was just a make show. At this, Lord Shiva became angry and his eyes burned ferociously. He raised his trident and was about to kill Bhrigu when Goddess Parvati fell at his feet and spoke some words to pacify him. Bhrigu then left that place and went to Vaikuntha, where Lord Janardhan resides. So there he met the Supreme Lord, who was lying with his head on the lap of his consort, Lakshmi Devi. And Bhrigu kicked him on the chest. So the first Brahma he didn't bow down to. Second, Lord Shiva insulted him. He insulted him personally. Now with Vishnu, he kicked him in the chest, on the chest. The Lord then rose along with Goddess Lakshmi as a sign of respect, coming down from his bedstead, bowing his head, and he told the sage, "Please sit down and rest for some time. Kindly forgive us, dear master, for not noticing your arrival. Please purify me, my realm, and the realm of the universal rulers devoted to me by giving us the water that has washed your feet. This holy water is indeed what makes all places of pilgrimage sacred. Today, my Lord, I have become the exclusive shelter of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, because she will consent to reside on my chest, because your foot has rid it of sins." Bhrigu felt satisfied and delighted to hear the solemn words spoken by Lord Vaikuntha. Overwhelmed with devotional ecstasy, he remained silent, his eyes brimming with tears. So this is an interesting picture, painting. And this is Lord Vishnu touching the feet of Bhrigu Muni. I heard that he's also, Lord Vishnu said, I hope your feet are not hurt because my chest is very hard. I also heard that Lakshmi Devi was not very happy with Bhrigu's actions, and she cursed that the descendants of Bhrigu, the Brahmins, I will not live with them. That's hence why Brahmins are usually quite poor, like we see Sudama and Shrutadev. Anyway, Bhrigu then returned to the sacrificial area of the wise Vedic authorities and described his entire experience to them. Amazed upon hearing Bhrigu's account, the sages were freed from all doubt and became convinced that Vishnu is the greatest Lord. So it's hardly any surprise that even if the great sages are not very clear, and how common people can easily misunderstand who's supreme and who's not. The learned Brahmins living along the river Saraswati came to the conclusion, in order to dispel the doubts of all people. Thereafter, they rendered devotional service to the Supreme Lord's lotus feet and attained his abode. From Vishnu comes peace, fearlessness, the essential principles of religion, detachment with knowledge, the eightfold powers of mystic yoga, and his glorification, which cleanses the mind of all impurities. Okay. So that's the end of that section. Now there's something else that happens in Dwarka. Once in Dwarka, a Brahman's wife gave birth to a son who immediately died. The Brahman took this dead son to the court of King Ugrasen and berated the king. This duplicitous, greedy enemy of the Brahmins has caused my son's death by failing to execute his duties properly. So even the king was not absorbed from criticism, even though it may not have been his fault. The Brahmins were very powerful. They could say anything they wanted. Not just the Brahmins. The same misfortune continued to befall the Brahman, and each time he would bring his dead son, dead infant's body, to the royal court and berate the king. When the 9th son died at birth, Arjun, who was near Lord Keshav, happened to hear the Brahman's complaint, and he said, "My lord, the rulers of a kingdom in which the Brahman..." Oh, thank you. The rulers of the kingdom in which Brahmins lament over lost wealth, wives, children are merely impostors, playing the role of kings just to earn their livelihood. I will protect your progeny. If I fail to keep my promise, I will enter fire to atone for my sin. These are quite heavy statements by Arjun, especially spoken in the court in Dwarka. The Brahman said, neither Sankarsan, that's Lord Balaram, or Vasudev, Krishna, Pradyumna, is the son of Krishna, the best of bowmen, nor Aniruddha could save my sons. Then why do you naively attempt a feat that the almighty laws of the universe could not perform? We cannot take you seriously. So Arjun said, I am Arjun, the wielder of the Gandiva bow. Do not minimize my ability, which was good enough to satisfy Lord Shiva. O Brahman, I will bring back your sons, dear master, even if I have to defeat death himself in battle. Thus convinced by Arjun, O tormentor of enemies, the Brahman went home satisfied by having heard Arjun's declaration of his prowess. So all this time, Krishna would have been smiling, knowing what was going to happen. Some time later, the Brahman's wife was about to give birth for the 10th time. When Arjun learned of this, he went to the maternity house and enveloped it with a protective cage of arrows. Arjun's efforts, however, were to no avail, for as soon as the child was born and began to cry, it disappeared into the sky. As the Brahman profusely derided Arjun, the warrior employed a mystic incantation to go at once to Samyamani, the city of heaven where Lord Yamraj resides, and he thus set off. But Arjun could not find the Brahman son there. He went to the cities of Indra, Agni, Niliti, Soma, Ivayu, and Varun. With weapons at the ready, he searched through all the domains of the universe, from the bottom of the subterranean region to the roof of heaven. And even after searching throughout the 14 worlds, he could not find the infant. Finally, having not found the Brahman son anywhere, Arjun decided to enter the sacrificial fire, sacred fire, having failed to keep his promise. But just as he was about to do so, Lord Krishna stopped him and said, I will show you the Brahman sons. So please don't despise yourself like this. These same men who now criticize us will soon establish our spotless fame. Lord Krishna then took Arjuna on his transcendental chariot, and the two of them crossed over the 7 universal islands as Jambudvip with their 7 oceans, passed over Lokaloka mountain range, and entered the region of dense darkness. Since the horses could not find their way, Krishna sent his blazing Sudarshan disc ahead to pierce the gloom. That disc shone like thousands of suns, penetrating the darkness with its blazing effulgence. Following the Sudarshan disc, the chariot went beyond the darkness and reached the endless spiritual light of all-pervasive Brahmajyoti. From that region, there entered a body of water resplendent with huge waves being churned by a mighty wind. Within that ocean, Arjuna saw an amazing palace, more radiant than anything he had ever seen before. Its beauty was enhanced by thousands of ornamental pillars decked with brilliant gems. In that palace was the huge, awe-inspiring serpent, Anantashesh, who shone brilliantly. Arjuna then saw that the omnipresent and omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu. So what was he doing? Sitting at ease on the serpent bed. His bluish complexion was the color of a dense rain cloud. He wore beautiful yellow garments. His face looked charming. His broad eyes were most attractive. He had 8 long, handsome arms. His profuse locks of hair were bathed on all sides in the brilliance, reflected from the clusters of precious jewels decorating his crown and earrings. He wore the Kaustubha gem, the mark of Srivatsa, and the garland of forest flowers. Serving that topmost of all lords were his personal attendants, headed by Sunanda and Nanda. His chakra and other weapons in their personified form were also with him. His consort potencies, Pushti, Shri, Kirti, and Ajat, and all his various mystic powers. So they were all around him. Lord Krishna offered homage to himself in this boundless form. So Krishna paid his obeisances to Mahavishnu, who is none other than himself anyway. To safeguard the special sanctity of his human-like pastimes as Krishna, he offered obeisances to his own plenary expansion. Arjuna, astonished at the sight of Lord Mahavishnu, bowed down as well. Then, as the two of them stood before him with joined palms, the Almighty Mahavishnu, Supreme Master of all rulers of the universe, smiled and spoke to them in a voice full of solemn authority. The great Lord smiled and greeted Sri Krishna and Arjuna, saying, I brought the Brahmin sons here simply because I wanted to see the two of you. Please continue to benefit the people in general by exemplifying religious behavior in your forms of Naranarayan Rishi. After bowing down to Almighty Mahavishnu, Lord Krishna and Arjuna then took the Brahmin sons, went back to Dwarka and presented the Brahman with his sons, who were in the same infant bodies in which they had been lost. So it's also described how Mahavishnu wanted the darshan of Krishna. And one way to do that was to take these Brahmins' boys so that Krishna would come and see him. And Krishna offered the etiquette because he'd come as a human being. So he offered the etiquette of bowing down. Lord Mahavishnu spoke in such a way as to bewilder Arjuna. In obedience to Sri Krishna's intention, his smile hinted at his private thoughts, which Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has revealed for our benefit. So these are the thoughts of Mahavishnu. My dear Krishna, by your desire, I will describe my superiority, even though I am your expansion. So it's very unusual, and it can be very confusing. So who's the supreme? Is it Mahavishnu or is it Krishna? They both are, of course, but the original is Sri Krishna, and Mahavishnu wanted to have his darshan. Having seen the domain of Lord Vishnu, Arjuna was totally amazed. He concluded that whatever extraordinary power a person exhibits can only be a manifestation of Sri Krishna's mercy. Lord Krishna exhibited many other similar heroic pastimes in this world. He apparently enjoyed the pleasure of ordinary human life, and he performed great, potent fire sacrifices. The Lord, having demonstrated the supremacy at suitable times, his supremacy at suitable times, he showered down on all desirable things upon the Brahmins and his other subjects, such as, just as Indra pours down his rain. So that's the end of chapter 89. Very interesting chapter. Any questions, any comments, please? Okay, Surinder, anything you'd like to comment? May not be there. Madhusudan Babu, would you like to take us through the instructions?
I think he's out there. I'll call him 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. So tomorrow we'll conclude the 10th canto with the 90th chapter. What an amazing journey. Oh yes, Karuna, do you think you'll be able to do some Q&A, or it might take some time, huh? Because you started school now.
Yeah, I'll try to complete some chapters.
Sure. Next Monday, because now the rest of the week, after Tuesday is Madhavendra Puri's day, and then Wednesday we're not here. So Wednesday you could do the Brahma Samhita. We're not here. We'll
Okay,
be
Prabhu.
traveling back. And then Thursday, Go Pune, Friday, Go Pune, Saturday, Go Pune. Saturday, we're not around either. Sunday, Go Pune again. And Monday, you can do Q&A if you like.
Okay, Prabhu.
Great.
Okay, he's here.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, chapter 89. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So yeah, we get to learn about the greatness and also the difference between Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma through Bhrigu's tests. And just simple test, isn't it? Just to disrespect or show a sign of disregard or something, and then immediately they react. So Lord Brahma gets angry, Lord Shiva, and also, but Mahavishnu reacts differently, and so through that, you get to know that Mahavishnu is more to goodness, and goodness prevails, but the still material world, is to be transcended. But also, by the causeless mercy of Krishna, even Arjuna gets to resolve his promise, because Arjuna gets into this tanglement of promising, I will protect your son to the Brahman, and 9 of his sons has been killed. And I think Brahman was also quite challenging the king, saying, you're something wrong within your rule of the way you're ruling. You're not doing your duty properly, and nobody should die in your kingdom as such, like this, infant. But So Arjun promises, obviously, and then Krishna has to try to help him resolve that, because he can't protect like that. Only Krishna can. So obviously, the Brahman protect his son, but even Lord Vishnu desired to have darshan of Krishna. So we learn how, Lord Mahavishnu desiring have darshan of on self in a form of Krishna with two-arm form with the flute, but however, darshan of Krishna anyway. And, he takes away these infant sons. So instead of going to Yamaraj, they had gone to Mahavishnu and kept them there, or somehow. But this amazing ride, Krishna, Arjuna has an amazing ride on this transcendental chariot on the way to Mahavishnu, and on the way, I like that bit where, suddenly there was a dark region and the chariot is going through, and the Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra gives them that light in front to go through the darkness. That was amazing. But then they also, and it transcends and goes through material and causal ocean and goes to the city actually. So where Mahavishnu is lying on the bed of ocean, there's actually a city there, which Anant Shesh is there. The great Lord Mahavishnu greeted Shri Krishna and Arjuna saying, so this is actually the verse from Sukadeva Goswami saying that Mahavishnu greeted Shri Krishna and Arjuna saying, I brought the Brahman's sons here simply because I wanted to see the two of you. Please continue to benefit the people in general by exemplifying religious behavior in your forms of Narayan Rishi. So we'll find more about Narayan Rishi. We say that verse every time, must pay respect. So yeah, it's an interesting chapter, and Arjun's promise get resolved somehow. So Jai Krishna, Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Any questions? Any comments?
Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna, anyway.
yes. A bit strange that Lord Vishnu has to go or get rid of, or rather kill these Brahmins' 10 sons or 10 newborn babies just to have darshan of Krishna and Arjuna. It's very roundabout way of going about, when they can, I don't know what's the reason behind it. There must be a definite reason behind all this.
Definitely, definitely a lot of teachings there. I mean, he didn't kill them. He kept them knowing that Lord would eventually come and save them. He knew that Krishna would come sometime to protect the Brahman's property. So that's a lesson. Krishna, he always protects the Brahman's property. And then there's a lot of learnings from this. Why did he do it in the first place? Why not just turn up in Dwarka? Well, if he had turned up in Dwarka, Mahavishnu would have looked out of place. He had 8 hands, and the opulence he has. Everybody would have just paid obeisances to him. But he knows the position is that Krishna actually is, the original, and he's simply the expansion. But this also shows the greatness of Krishna, that even Mahavishnu, who is in one way no different from Krishna, wanted to experience the darshan of Krishna. So how exalted Krishna is. So this is also to teach us that who we are worshipping, Krishna, is somebody who's just totally exalted and totally inconceivable for us to ever understand. So that's what, I mean, one of the learnings from this chapter. So, yeah, he could have chosen other ways, but he also wanted to benefit the Brahmin, because the Brahmin will have benefited by Krishna looking after his son. So many different things.
And he also had to keep Arjun's word.
And that's another thing that, well, two things there, isn't it?
Mm.
First, shouldn't be proud as a Kshatriya that you can,
Do anything.
make promises which even in front of the Lord himself, if the Lord wasn't going to protect that boy, who are you? And when the Lord wants to protect, nobody can destroy that boy. So yeah, many teachings from this. And the second fall, of course, is that he always keeps the word of his devotees. So Arjun made that promise, and Krishna was duty bound to keep the devotee's promise. So many pastime, many learnings from one pastime. But it's a tough pastime to sort of get your head around in that sense.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Does that answer the question? Not really.
No, in a way, yes. In a way, yes. But
Yeah.
what I was thinking that they could have done it directly, wanted to have Krishna, but they wanted to just created this Maya.
Yes.
And
Yes.
wanted to see greatness of the Krishna, as well as the Brahman must have done something to so that his 10 sons were protected by Krishna.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Many things out of this pastime.
Okay.
No, thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you for making us sort of analyze it a little bit better. Try to at least.
Okay.
Anything else? Surinder, are you there? No, I may not be there. Okay, so if there's nothing else, we can.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhu, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. So, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm in the train, but I'll share briefly. Yes.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Sri Nityananda Chandram Patita Sharanadam Gauradam Tam Bhajeham. Yes, Prabhu, very interesting. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra early morning, 4 o'clock on the roof of his house. And then there was a mystical wind going towards Yogapit, the birthplace of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that this mystical wind, which was going towards Yogapit, was Nashingadev himself going to attend the Aarti of Gauranga Mahaprabhu in Mayapur. Yes. So the expansions of Krishna, they worship Krishna and serve Krishna as well. Yes. Sorry, Prabhu, I cannot continue. I'm in the train. Sorry.
No,
Anyway,
thank you. That's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. I've never heard that before. So very interesting.
Yes, we've been told by our senior devotees.
Very nice.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explained that this mystical wind every day at 4 o'clock, this mystical wind will pass by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that it's Nashingadev going for the Aarti of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And in fact, in that place, he had a deity of Nashingadev, if I'm not mistaken, nearby. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.